Washington Pod presents EARL Nightingale.
I was in San Francisco the other day, and an item in the San Francisco Chronicle caught my eye. It was about a woman who had earned a fortune designing and selling clothes for the children of the well-to-do. It said her secret was in the simplicity of the clothes she produced. The story carried a headline that read, "Children's Styles That Last Forever." The article, written by Joan Chatfield Taylor, began, "It's often true that the simplest things cost the most money, and nowhere is it truer than in children's clothes. If it's ruffles, bows, trendy colors, and faddish styles you want for your little darling, you can just stroll down to your five and dime mail-order catalog or discount store. If it's an absolutely plain dress or play suit you want, you may have to go to the 7th floor of I. Magnin to buy a Florence Eisman." Florence Eisman has been called the Norell of the children's wear industry. Like Norell, she specializes in rather simple shapes, perfectly executed in the best available fabrics. Also like Norell, she makes clothes that don't go out of date. The clothes she designed in the 50s could be worn by children today. Florence Eisman believes in utterly simple dresses, preferably without belts or waistlines, in clear, bright colors or classic neutrals like gray, navy, and black. The declining birth rate has been hard on the children's wear industry, but Florence Eisman continues to thrive. The high quality of the fabrics, most of which are imported from Europe, and the workmanship, all of which is done at the Eisman factories in Milwaukee and Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, are two reasons for the durability of Eisman designs. Well, in reading that story, I was struck by how much we can learn from it. It's a story that has to be told and learned over and over again. First, simplicity of design. Design following function. What is the product supposed to do? It's supposed to clothe small children who must not only look good in their clothes, but who spend a good deal of their time running, playing, squirming, climbing, sliding, staining, straining, and subjecting to every torture test possible the clothes they wear. Children don't change. They are much the same today as they were 10,000 years ago. Secondly, quality of materials and workmanship. Incidentally, I mentioned that I wanted to use the Florence Eisman story for a direct line to my wife, and she informed me that our little boy, Ted, wore nothing but Florence Eisman clothes when he was small, and that the clothes are still in service with various relatives. As I read the Florence Eisman story, it reminded me of a Sidney J. Harris column I had read and clipped the week before. Mr. Harris had predicted in a column written nearly 30 years before that the men's hat industry would very likely come to an end during his lifetime. After the column appeared, he'd received a stiff letter from the president of the Stetson Company taking issue with him and telling him he didn't know what he was talking or writing about. Well, last year, the Stetson Company went out of business. A few months later, HCA, the largest volume hat maker in the United States, announced that it intended to sell out. Sid Harris went on to point out that today about 1 man in 30 buys a hat, while at the turn of the century almost every man did. And he said, "I have long maintained that the so-called practical businessmen often don't know their own business, and that social theorists, poets, and even vagrants could sometimes tell them more about what's happening or going to happen than they learn from interviewing one another in the 537 club car back to the Ivory Suburb." In his column, written back in 1944, Sid Harris suggested that the American male was seeking a new masculine image, and that the traditional hat foisted on him since Victorian times made him feel foolish, pompous, and inept. I and all my friends under 30 at the time wouldn't be caught dead in a hat. But the hat makers blindly persisted in relying on classical styles when the whole mood and tempo of life had shifted into a higher gear. It was not lack of funds or facilities, as much as lack of imagination, that presaged the doom of the conventional American hat. Beginning after World War II, the American man resented the bland uniformity of the dumb-looking hat, which not only failed to make him look dashing and virile — in the past his father wanted only to look respectable — but also blew off in the slightest wind, failed to provide warmth and comfort, and became permanently misshapen in the first rainstorm. Florence Eisman waxed prosperous in the world's most competitive business, while the giants in the men's hat business, with all the wealth and facilities at their beck and call, failed. Florence Eisman makes simple, well-designed children's clothes that appeal to the good taste of discriminating adults and the functional needs of children, fashioned from the finest materials and sturdily fabricated to take such punishment for many years. The men's hat industry, on the other hand, it seems to me, did not ask, how can we design hats to fit the needs and desires of a changing market? Instead, they tried to sell a changing market an unchanging product. I think the American automakers missed the boat on the small, inexpensive-to-buy-and-operate car for the same reasons. The hat makers blindly persisted in relying on classical styles when the whole mood and tempo of life had shifted into a higher gear. I think that what Sidney Harris wrote about the hat business in 1944 is true of the world automotive market today, in which there's been a very obvious change going on for some time. I think many of the products turned out by the major automakers are as obsolete today as the Victorian hat, and I think the first one that applies the common-sense, good-taste system of Florence Eisman will capture an inordinate share of not just the American market, but the world auto market as well. Now, how about what we do? How can we apply the Florence Eisman formula to what we produce? It isn't her formula at all, really, as I'm sure she'd be the first to admit. It goes all the way back to ancient Greece. She and the few others like her have simply had the good judgment and good taste to apply the formula and reap the inevitable rewards. It will perhaps pay us to take a new look at what we do and ask some important questions, such as, 1, what is my product or service supposed to do? What is its real function? 2, is it doing that in the best and most direct way possible? 3, is it simple, uncluttered, in good taste, and of the best materials available to me? 4, does it meet the needs of my customers and prospects, and will it continue to meet their needs for many years to come? 5, is it the very best we can produce to do the job it is intended to do? 6, do we have our customers' best interest in first place, or have we made them subordinate to profits? The test of a good or great product is that it tends to remain in style for many years, even centuries. The architecture, statuary, and literature of ancient Greece is still right up to date, as interesting and as valuable today as it was 2,000 years ago. A Stradivarius violin or a painting by one of the masters, good crystal, silver, and china, all have appreciated over the years, like good real estate. Now, how about what we do? Will it meet the test of greatness, or be so much useless junk in a few short years?